How can you make sure your website improves over time? I'm Daniel Burka, and I'll talk about how we use user feedback at Dig and Pounce today on The Lab.
Oh, hi, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to The Lab. I'm Leo Laporte. This is the show where we're going to explain how technology works. Yes, in this next hour, you're going to learn how technology works. Everything you'd ever want to know about everything you'd ever want to know about, well, maybe not everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate Abraham, how are you today,
I am
dear?
superb, thank you.
Episode 179. In a never-ending saga of how technology works. Actually, I'm so glad Daniel Burke is here.
Yes.
Canada's favorite son. He started on Prince Edward Island, where Amber MacArthur is from. And now he's a big shot in the San Francisco scene. He's the designer of Dig.com, which is one of the hottest websites out there, and has a news site, which I really like, kind of a Twitter thing called Pounce. Have you tried Pounce?
I am on Pounce.
I love Pounce.
I do like Pounce.
It's certainly the most beautiful site out there for that kind of thing. We'll talk a little bit about how user feedback impacts his designs. It should be really fascinating. Also, Zach Grant is here. You know, you can, nowadays computers are so powerful, you can emulate any computer ever invented, ever made on a single Mac or PC. So we're going to talk about vintage computer emulators so you can play your old Commodore 64 games or your NES games.
The Spectrum.
What did you, when you were growing up, what was the game thing or the computer?
When I was really young, it was the Spectrum.
Spectrum?
Yeah, you literally had a cassette and you loaded it in, it made this kind of
Was
noise.
it from Sinclair? Who made that?
I think it was Sinclair.
Yeah.
We're talking probably 20 to 25.
I'm going to ask Zach. Maybe he can come up with a Spectrum
It made a great little noise.
And what was your favorite game?
Oh, Paperboy.
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 You had to throw the newspaper on the...
And avoid the cat and avoid the car. And I was really bad at it. Another one called Hippo as well.
I love it. Hippo?
Hippo or Pippo, one of them. It was a bit like kind of Pac-Man, but with hippos.
Sounds great. Maybe we can get Hippo or Hippo on the show as well.
Welcome to the UK.
Yeah, it's like Bizarro Gaming World. Yeah, it's just a little off.
Yeah, a little bit gone.
Yeah, a little bit. Hey, we also have some great calls, and I know we want to get them on as quickly as possible. So let's get our first caller.
So we are going to Omami in Ontario.
Where?
Omami.
Omami. Omami.
And we have Brian.
Thank you. Kate.
Thank you.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Leo. Pleasure to talk to you.
It's great to talk to you in Omami.
It's O-Mimi.
Mimi.
Aboriginal word from days gone by.
And what does it mean?
Pigeon.
Does anybody know what it means?
Pigeon.
Pigeon.
And
Okay.
it just so happens that the town is on the Pigeon River and Pigeon Lake.
I get it. Which really should be named Omimi River and Omimi Lake, but that's another matter for another day. What can I do for you today?
Well, I'm interested in... I've got a lot of old 60s and early 70s records. Good old vinyl.
Yes.
That I would love to put on CD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sure what software to use, or I think I can connect it if I can get a cable.
A couple of different ways to do this. You said cassettes or albums?
No, old vinyl, yeah.
Vinyl. I like the USB turntables. There are 3 companies that make these USB turntables. Ion, which is kind of a DJ company. They make the least expensive of them. Newmark, which is another DJ company. They make kind of a mid-range one. And then the top of the line is a Stanton T90. That's kind of a little more expensive. So it depends. If you thought you were going to use this turntable, to play the vinyl later, as a, kind of continue to use it, maybe be worth buying the Stanton. But if it's just going to be a one-time thing and then you're going to play the CDs from now on, I just use the Ion. It's really good. It's $119. It's nothing. And you see it everywhere. And the nice thing about this is it's a turntable, standard turntable, right? But it's got a USB port that comes out of it and goes right into your computer. So this does the conversion. Now, they've just announced a new product that is cool. If you don't have a computer, they have a turntable, I'm going to pull this up here for you, that doesn't require a computer, has a built-in CD burner. Now, this gives you less control, but it sure speeds up the process because you just play the record and it goes right to a CD. It's called the LP2 CD. It's pretty much the same turntable, but it now has a a little CD player or burner right in the base of it. It's not too expensive either. I think that's a couple of $100. Crosley Radio, remember Crosley Radio? That'll go back a long time in history. They make something called the Songwriter CD. This is more expensive. It's $400. It's something if you wanted to keep this around forever. Look at this. It's wood. It's got a turntable. There's a CD burner. It also does cassettes. But these are really designed for people without a computer. If you have a computer and you want to control, edit the songs, break them up into individual cuts and so forth, then I would just get one of the USB turntables. And I think unless you're going to, you have a reason to spend more money. Have you used the Ion ever, Sean Carruthers?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, we have a Numark at home, and it sounds great. It sounds great. That's a little more expensive.
Using my existing stereo.
Oh, yeah.
Got a very good turntable.
Oh, well, you're all set then.
Well, the thing is, I'd have to have some cable that converted from RCA jacks to the line in, I'm assuming.
That's exactly right. And here's the key. Remember that a turntable gives you an unbalanced output, so you can't just plug the turntable into the computer. You got to go through a preamp.
Yes, well, I was going to go through my receiver.
Exactly. If you already have a receiver, then the receiver gives you a balanced output at line level, and you plug it, and make sure you plug, if you have a line level input on your sound card, plug into the line level input on your sound card. Don't plug into the mic, because the mic expects a lower level. So plug into or a higher level. So you plug into the line level, and then any program can be used to record it. Are you on Windows or Mac?
Windows.
There's always Audacity, which is the free, open source sound editor. And, ironically, these turntables all come with Audacity because it's free. It doesn't cost them anything. Or you could spend a little more money and get a higher-end audio editing program, well under $100. There are lots of good choices. Music Match from Yahoo is a very good choice. Some of these higher-end ones, like Music Match, will take the audio input and automatically detect whether there's, when the song ends. So it'll divide up into songs and give you the kind of regulation 2-second gap between songs for your CD.
Oh, that was my next question.
Yeah.
If I was to use it the way I was talking, my turntable out with my receiver.
Yeah, it records one big blob.
Is that what happens? I'd end up with a whole side?
Yes. And that's why you use something like Audacity. You can chop it up, or you can use, and I'm not sure how well it does, but these programs like Music Match will listen, and when it hears silence, and it's not, the problem is it's not exactly silence, it's you know how it is on a record. So, but when it hears that, it goes, oh, that's the end, and we'll chop it off. So some of these programs, like Music Match, will divide them up into individual songs.
So, and how do they go about putting the name of the song?
They don't.
On each.
They don't.
Oh.
You do.
Oh.
They don't know.
This sounds like quite a project.
It is a project, exactly. Yeah, they don't know. And by the way, when you burn the CD, it doesn't know either. Most CDs don't have any information about songs on it. That information has to come from the internet in a completely different fashion. So you're really, either way, you're going to be doing this by, adding the song tracks. But if you're making it by hand, but if you're making a CD, you don't need that information. You don't need the title. You don't need, well, you need the title, but you don't need the song tracks and length, because that doesn't come on a normal CD anyway. You do if you want it on your computer. Then you want to put it in the MP3 text. And yeah, you got to do that by hand. It's a good project. A lot of people are doing this. This is very common. They're taking all their old cassettes, videos, LPs, all that old analog media. If we can just digitize it, it'll last forever. It's a good project. Hey, thanks for the call, Brian. I really appreciate it. Coming up, if you have a website or any business where you deal with customers, customer feedback is all important. And in this day and age, it really is important that you listen to it and act on it. But how do you do it? Well, Daniel Burka knows better than anybody. His site, dig.com, gets a lot of user feedback. How do you handle it? What do you do? We'll find out when the lab continues. You stay right here. Welcome back to the lab. Leo Laporte here. Daniel Burka is back. We had him on Call for Help many years ago. It's great to see you, Daniel. From Prince Edward Island. Prince Edward Island's favorite son. How do you become he's, by the way, now a superstar, a web designer, creative director at dig.com, co-founder of Pounce, which is a great site with Leah Culver. I guess my question is, how do you get from Prince Edward Island to that? Or just a great designer to begin with?
I got really lucky. I was working with these guys at a company called Silver Orange. So I met these guys, and a bunch of them are my friends from high school, and then I've met a few of them the next year, and we end up doing a bunch of work together, and we all kind of learned all this stuff together, and end up basically working on bigger and bigger projects. End up doing Mozilla's website, which was kind of
that was
a huge thing for us. And then and that Kevin contacted Silver Orange because of that, and so
that's neat. Yeah. Kevin Rose, of course, the founder of Dig. The reason I ask is I know we have kids watching all over Canada, all over Australia. Some of them say, "Oh, I live in somewhere off the beaten path. How could I become part of this?" You can.
Right. I mean, do good work.
Do good work.
Seriously, it's amazing how far what you can do if you just work on interesting projects and put your heart into it.
Now, your two companies are interesting. Both Dig and Pounce are very much user interactive. Dig, all the stories on Dig are voted up to the top of the front page. Pounce is all about people posting what they're up to and what's going on. So you get a lot of feedback from your users.
Absolutely, and Dig gets something like 20 million unique users a month. Wow. And Pounce has this. Pounce is quite young. It's already got quite a vibrant community, and so listening to those people and getting their feedback is absolutely important to improving the website.
Yeah, and this is kind of the brave new world. We see companies like Apple, for instance. It's not like Chrysler. When Apple stumbles, it hears from its users, and it's like they partly own the company.
Oh, absolutely, and even more so in our case, because I think, especially on Dig and also on Pounce, the interactions that people are having with our website, the content they're putting in there is what fuels the engine, right? Absolutely. And so those people, on Dig, for instance, if you've been on the site for 3 years and you've been digging content for 3 years, you feel like you've contributed and you've got this store of information. You own that, you know. And so it's really important for us to to listen to what they're saying and adapt the site to their needs.
Now, if it's the problem is you can't listen to everybody and do what everybody says. You have to kind of filter it. So how do you look at the feedback you get, and what do you do with it?
Right. When I first started working on sites that had big communities, so like Mozilla was a real eye opener for me, for instance, because they have a very passionate community. Even when I started working with them, and it's very easy to get in the idea that user feedback is either good or bad. We really like what you've done, we don't like what you've done. And when I first launched the Mozilla.org redesign, for instance, I was like, my first reaction was like, oh my God, like some people don't like it, like it's bad, right? But it turns out feedback's a lot more nuanced than that. And so, I mean, when you first launch something, you'll get that gut reaction from people, especially communities like Pounce and Dig and Mozilla. You get that really visceral reaction from people. It's
and
like,
it usually is love it or hate it.
That thing I know, right? Or that's awesome. We love you, kind of thing. But getting beyond that is really important. And so you get to the stage where you're getting more interesting feedback. You wait a week, and then suddenly you're still hearing the same kind of complaints. Well, you're like, well, maybe that's not a gut reaction. Maybe people really do feel strongly about that.
Do you throw out everything you hear for the first few weeks?
I think it's not that you throw it out. I absolutely don't mean that. We're definitely listening to people, but I think it's really it's foolhardy possibly to react to it immediately.
You can't react so quickly.
Right. I think that's one of the lessons I've learned is that you're really tempted in the first 24, 48 hours after you've launched something. You're like, oh, there's all that feedback. I really should change it. I should do what they want, kind of thing. But you're only hearing from a certain group of users, the type of people who will directly interact with you. I think that's the other thing that's really important is that the other type of feedback you get from people is implicit feedback. So when you hit a Dig button, when you click on a link, when you post a note on Pounce, for instance, or rate someone's note, these are the things that we're actually listening to you.
They're not giving you feedback directly, but the way they interact with your site says something about your site.
So for instance, on Dig, we learned this a lot with the recent comments redesign. So Dig has this very, very vibrant use of the comment system, so people respond to stories. And when we changed that comment system, this would be maybe 6 months ago, we got a very, very strong reaction from the community, and a lot of people were very negative about it because we changed things quite significantly. And that's really important, and we made a lot of mistakes, or not mistakes, but things that we really want to improve on, and we're doing that right now. But at the same time, when you look at the statistics, we actually looked at before and after, and the week before launching the comments and the week after launching the comments, we had something like 30% more comments totally.
Interesting.
And
so
even
the implicit
better,
feedback is they like it, really.
Absolutely. And we had 20% more people actually participating in the comments. And so that means like more people are actually interacting, and that's really so it wasn't a total disaster.
Right.
So it's really interesting to look at what people are saying out loud to you, and on the other hand, what people are actually doing.
Very
and so
interesting.
I think you definitely have to weigh both.
Do you pay more attention to the more thoughtful, longer posts? I mean, do you kind of weigh the feedback you're getting and say this is good feedback, this I'm not going to pay attention to?
Right. I think the quick feedback, kind of people like, I hate you, you should be fired, that kind of thing, that's important en masse, right?
Right.
So
if you get 10,000 of those, okay, maybe I'll start listening, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even, yeah, sure.
More than that, okay. But, in your case, millions, okay.
But yeah, and then so there's those types of people, and you listen to those in kind of groups, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there are expert users as well who are, I get feedback from other UI designers, and that's really exciting. Sometimes they'll send me emails, or they'll post in the comments, and they'll post very thoughtful. This is, I see what you were trying to do. This is what I might have done. So I'm definitely listening to that kind of feedback. That's really exciting.
Your peers, in effect, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Of course, Dig is one of those sites people look at because you're solving so many problems nobody's ever dealt with before. How to handle so many users and their input, and how to filter it and so forth. So you're doing stuff that nobody's ever done before.
Sure, yeah. Some of it we're dealing with like massive scaling issues, and kind of dealing with interaction issues, getting lots and lots of people to participate in things that are really interesting.
Right. Yeah. So have you changed anything significantly because of feedback?
Oh, absolutely. I think the comment system's a good example. We've gone through 4 or 5 iterations now, and we're working on a brand new comment system that's going to, I might be able to bring up a demo here.
It's probably important. You go ahead. While you're doing that, it's probably important that you at least appear responsive, even if you choose not to, right? I mean, people expect you to be listening to them in a community like this, especially.
Figures I didn't prepare this well enough.
That's okay, but this is Daniel's working on this stuff as he travels around. You're up in here in town for the web app.
That's right. I'm here for
conference.
Future of
Web Apps.
I'm going to get this wrong. It's another one I'm going to later. This is Web Directions North.
Web Directions North.
Organized by Dave Shea and a few people.
That's right. Dave Shea put that together. Yeah, he's been on the show. So this is what you're looking at as a potential new system?
Right. And so we've listened to a lot of the feedback we've gotten from people. And so this new comment system, I think Kevin Rose actually did a video demo of this. And so we've taken a lot of the feedback from people. They didn't like that the UI was cluttered with a lot of vertical lines, for instance. So now when you go into a thread, it's a lot lighter looking.
It is. It's nice.
So this is the kind of thing I think that we're excited about rolling out.
As a designer, have your ideas changed a lot since you started doing this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. So this presentation I'm doing at Web Directions tomorrow is I'm going back through a number of projects and kind of showing how they've evolved, and a lot of that to do with user feedback. And some of it's a little bit embarrassing.
You're brave to show that old stuff.
Even the old Dig designs. I mean, the old Dig button, for instance, used to only have room for 3 numbers in it.
Yeah, you didn't
really
expect more than that. That's why.
So
now you'll get sometimes digs in the tens of thousands.
Oh, absolutely.
Or more. Yeah. Daniel Burka is creative director at digg.com, a great site to catch up on news on all sorts of subjects. Also the co-founder of Pounce, which I think is fantastic, POWNCE.com. You'll find me there as well as a lot of other people who use it to kind of post microblog, to post what they're up to, and invite people to events, post files. It's really cool. That's really great.
I'm so glad to see you on.
Thanks for coming back. Cool. I really appreciate it. Daniel Burka, well, we're going to take a break, come back with more of your calls in just a bit. You stay right here. Oh, but first, a close-up picture that Mr. Sean Carruthers took of something you'd commonly find around the lab. What the tech is that? What is that? It looks like a button of some sort. I don't know. Tell you what, we'll zoom out and find out when the lab continues. You stay right here. Welcome back to the lab. Now, here's a close-up of something you don't see every day. Why, that would be a D-Link WUA 1340. I don't even know what that is. Is that a USB Wi-Fi device? That would be. That's what that is. Sean and his macro. I like that. You gave him the stink eye right there. Yeah. All right. Hey, let's get another caller on the air here.
This here is Jim, and here's from St. John in Newfoundland.
Thank you, Kate. Hello, Jim.
Leo, how are you?
I'm fantabulous. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, thanks.
What can I do for you?
Well, thanks for taking my call. It's a great opportunity.
Certainly.
Yeah, I've been a great fan of the show back from the Call for Help days, eh?
Oh, I tell you, we're now, if you include Call for Help, we're well over 2,000 shows. I don't even know what the number is. It's some huge number. So,
It's been great years. You've covered some great topics.
Yeah, we're going to, in 2 months, it'll be our 10th anniversary. 10 years. 10 years.
Wow.
So what can I do of answering people's questions? It's changed a lot since 1998, I might add. And now we're Windows Vista, OS 10, Leopard. I mean, back then, I think we were still using Windows 95 when we first started this show.
I think so.
Yeah. So what can I do for you?
Well, I use my laptop regularly to listen to one of our local radio stations, the live feed, and suddenly, like I'm no longer getting the live feed, but I do have a desktop computer, and it's working fine on that. As well as what's puzzling me is the other feeds, media feeds streaming, such as newscasts, news clips, like on CNN.com and different things like that. So I'm puzzled as to, it's not the radio station because it's working on my desktop, but it's not working on my laptop.
What's the radio station?
Sorry?
What is the station?
The station is VOCM.com.
Let me go there and see. I'll tell you what it often is. The thing about streaming media, streaming audio, VOCM.com, let me type that right. The thing about streaming media is there are a variety of different standards. Unlike, downloadable music, which is, pretty much MP3, there are a variety of different ways to do it. And some of them are compatible with systems and some aren't. Now I see immediately when I look at the VOCM site, it says it needs Windows Media Player. I mean, it's got a little Windows Media Player button right there. So I know this is a Windows Media site, as many sites are. Now it pulls up this player and it says I get an information. This website wants you to add the following add-on, Windows Media Player extension. So if you don't have that, it's not going to work. And I suspect, so it's an ActiveX control. Let's run it. Tell me a little bit about your laptop versus your desktop. Oh, that's interesting. That just crashed Internet Explorer. Tell me a little bit about your laptop versus your desktop. Are you both running XP?
XP with Service Pack 2 on both.
Okay.
And what's puzzling is that on my laptop, the radio station that's streaming on that particular site was working fine. And
then it stopped working.
And it just stopped working.
Well, I would check to make sure. First of all, it could be that you upgraded Windows Media Player on your laptop and didn't upgrade on the desktop, which could have caused an incompatibility. It could be this ActiveX control, which I now have running on VOCM. It could be that for security reasons you didn't, the laptop blocked it and the desktop didn't. It could also be, do you run some security software on that laptop, like Norton Internet Security or Norton 360?
I use through the internet service provider. It's called Alliance Security Services.
Okay. Could very well.
What are they called?
Are you running that on the desktop as well as the laptop?
Yes, it's both on the same.
I would check the settings. Security software will often block incoming traffic like this. But since you're saying CNN and other things won't play, it's probably this Windows Media component. And it could be broken. It could be incompatible. It could be you have a version that doesn't work. So I would check your version of Windows Media Player, and what you might want to do is upgrade to the latest version, Windows Media Player 11. If you're not upgraded to that on the laptop, that might help as well. I notice, and this is really, I have to say, this is the fault of the broadcasters. For instance, this doesn't work with Firefox. It only works with Internet Explorer. If you're using Firefox, you have to click a different button. And oh, now I have to validate my copy. I mean, the whole thing, it's a mess. So this is the problem is that all broadcasters do it differently. They don't all do it differently, but there are a variety of different ways. Some use Windows Media Player, some use QuickTime, some use Flash. Flash more and more is becoming the standard because Flash seems to work on everything. And is a much simpler thing. So more and more stations are moving to Flash players as opposed to these embedded Windows controls. You can't run this on a Mac, for instance. This won't work at all. You cannot listen to VOCM on a Macintosh. Now, if I'm VOCM, I think that's a drawback. I want everybody who wants to listen to me, right? So they're a little antiquated in what they're doing, and I think it probably has something to do with that. I would update your Windows Media Player on the laptop. I would check your security software. You might be having a problem with the ActiveX control being installed. There's just so many little things that could have gone wrong. The key obviously is to figure out what's different about your laptop from your desktop. And it's going to be around that Windows Media Player. Okay?
How do I correct for the ActiveX control?
Well, if it's broken, it's a whole nother matter entirely. I think that's the least likely situation. So let's not worry about that too much. Let's try to get in there and upgrade your Windows Media Player, turn off your security software, see if either of those things helps. It could be so many different things, that's what I'm saying. And I have to say, I hear non-stop problems with streaming internet audio. It's just a real common problem. Now, let's head over to Sean Carruthers, who is banging on the dinner plates once again. What are you, wait a minute, I hear a drum, but it's just a rubber pad. It's time for Sean's Shiny. What is this?
This is the USB Mandala from Synesthesia. And what this is it is a USB drum. It's got a little sensor underneath that's a circle that goes out to the edge, and you can actually configure this.
Is it different kinds of drums?
It's different types of drums, yes. So it's a MIDI trigger.
The problem is that the rubber pad is louder than the drum.
Yes, well,
you want to wear headphones with
You're meant to be using this in a production environment or...
It must be really loud.
Right.
Turn up the speakers.
Right. So what we do have here
this is neat.
It's a USB
So is this kind of pro, or is this kind of an amateur device?
It's a little bit of both. There's some pros that are using this. You can see on the on my screen here, I've actually got what's called the virtual brain. And it is...
That lets you set what drum sounds and so forth?
Right, and we've got 2 zones set up right now. You can choose between 1 zone and 7 zones. So we'll just flip over here.
So even with one pad, you still at least get a little bit of a bigger drum kit.
Right, so we can set up a drum set now. And now you've got, you should have up to 7 here. So the problem is that each of these circles is a little bit tight.
Hard to hit.
So it's hard to hit. When you're hitting it in the bottom corner here, we've got a number that's showing up, showing which zone you're hitting. So a little bit of practice, or maybe a few little positional pieces of tape on there.
Or maybe not set up 7.
Or maybe not set up 7. If you're a really good drummer and you've got great accuracy, this might work just fine.
I like this. So how much is this? I mean, I think this might be...
It's $349. That comes with the software.
Cheaper than a drum kit.
It has great sounds built into this package.
Sounds good.
Yeah, a ton of different sounds. So it's definitely worth playing with.
And Mac or PC, I like that. What are the negatives on this here?
The negatives on it is it can be painful to set up. I had a whole pile of trouble getting the MIDI working on this machine, but once it's set up and you know how that gets set up, it's pretty straightforward after that point. And it is, as you know, it's hard to locate the zones. You need serious practice to get that together.
I like the price, though. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than a drum kit. Could you get a couple of them and have a real set?
You can get up to 5 of them up there, 7 zones each, so 35 different triggers.
Oh, wow. Look at that. More of your calls coming up in just a bit. Thank you, Sean. Right now, though, it's time to take our quick quiz question of the day. Here it is. Countdown drum. What was the name of the video projection system Edward Muybridge invented in 1879? Was it CinemaScope, Zoopraxiscope, Kinetoscope, or did he have a 150-inch plasma TV? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, we'll find out when the lab continues. Stay right here.
Hey, welcome back to the Lab with Leo. I'm Kate Abraham, and my tip of the day is anybody out there who made a New Year's resolution about keeping your house tidy, and it's failed already. GoodHousekeeping.com has a clutter solution that will declutter your house in 30 minutes or less. Fantastic little site to use. All I need to do is just decide which room I want to declutter. So for instance, my kitchen's a bit of a mess. Yeah, maybe, under my sink. Yeah, that's pretty bad too. Once I've submitted this, it'll give me the options of what I need to do to declutter my sink and my pantries. So for instance, 15 minutes, I can get myself a nice little pull-out stacking basket system. And there's a number of different rooms you can look at, which is great. So, for instance, bedrooms are usually quite bad, and bathrooms.
Yes.
So you can just go through this. That's goodhousekeeping.com.
But they don't come to your house and do that for you.
Unfortunately not.
That's what I need.
I think 15 minutes is a little bit light, maybe.
But that's, what it's good is it gives you a starting point.
Yeah, it does.
And something you can do.
Absolutely.
Tried and true with a good housekeeping seal of approval.
It's good housekeeping, so it must be good.
It's got to be good.
It's got to be good.
That's not the word we use for my housekeeping. Good? No.
No, mine no.
Let's get another caller on the air. Maybe we can help with it.
We are going to Saskatoon in Saskatchewan, and we are going to talk to Kevin.
Kevin! Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
I'm fantabulous. How are you today?
Great. I'm just enjoying our Saskatchewan weather.
Oh, it's a beautiful, sunny, warm day in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, it's about minus 40 with the wind chill.
Well, the nice thing about minus 40 is it's exactly the same, isn't it, in Fahrenheit and Celsius?
I guess
so I actually know what that means. It's cold. Oh, wow. When it gets that cold, do you just stay inside the whole time?
No, unfortunately, life has to continue here.
I don't know how you do it. Of course, you're on the plane, so that wind comes whistling through, and oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. Well, what can I do for you? Maybe I can help you warm up.
Well, I was just wondering, like, a long time ago I learned that the powers that be decided 16:9 was the optical viewing area for HD TVs. So I was just wondering why they decided to make widescreen PC monitors 16:10.
Well, let me, you know, it's funny because we do often think of 16:9 as the high-def aspect ratio. We're talking about aspect ratio here, which is the ratio of the width, 16, to the height, 9. Of course, it could be any size, but the ratio would be 16:9. Let me tell you something. Movies are not 16:9. In fact, there are so many aspect ratios. This is the Wikipedia article on aspect ratios, and it looks like there are about 15 different possibilities. A pretty traditional 70mm film is 2.2 to 1. Most widescreen theatricals are 1.85 to 1. So you could see our computer screen and our TV screens don't actually match the aspect ratios of movies. That's why when you watch a movie, you frequently have these black bars on the side, even in a movie. Now, it is true that high-def television, like this show, is shot at 16:9, but that's just one of many things you might run on your TV. Now, why the computer is 16:10 instead of 16:9, you got me. I don't think there's any technical reason, except that computer screens, even wide screens, were kind of designed before, you know, there was any kind of locked-in standard for what a widescreen should be. So I think it's just chance. Now, the good news is 16:10 is so close to 16:9 that there really is effectively no difference. You could have a little tiny black bar on the edge, and it would be tiny, or you could stretch it a little bit, and you wouldn't notice it. So the truth is there is no standard ratio. Look at all these different ratios. IMAX is 1.43 to 1. You know, I mean, it's all over the place. Only this 1.78 to 1 or 16:9. Only this middle one here is the actual 16:9 ratio, and even MPEG-2 only has 3 different ratios. So that's a really good question. I mean, I don't know why historically computer screens are typically 16:10. That would be, say, for instance, 1280 by 800. Those wide screens, or 1600 by 1200. But you know, do you know, Sean? Actually, 1600 by 1200 is what? 4:3, isn't it?
Yeah, it started out as 4:3.
Yeah, which is the standard for NTSC video.
Right, and I think it may have had a little bit to do with adding the ability to add menus underneath the widescreen. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
It's just made up.
Well, one thing that might be helpful in general, I find, is our good friend Craig Severson has a show called Video Grunt on the internet, and he does have a number of different podcasts about how it came to be for television, the 4:3, 16:9, and how that evolved through history.
He did a segment on the show based on that, and yeah, absolutely. If you go to, I guess it's videogrunt.com, videogrunt.com, and watch Craig's story. Now, I don't know if he mentions why computer screens are different. You've asked really a fantastic question. You know, for historic reasons, I don't know. You know, and there's no reason. They're all LCD screens. There's no technical reason why this should be 16:10 and that should be 16:9. It's an LCD. Yeah, I mean, I like your idea. It gives them room for the menu. It's not much room.
Yeah, why not?
It's just a little sliver of room. But great question. The truth is there is no magic aspect ratio, and much of the stuff you're going to watch, whether you watch it on your computer or your television, is going to have some sort of black bars or will be stretched to fit the image anyway. If you want to read all about this or find out all about it, go to videogrunt.com, or Wikipedia has a great article on it. More, thank you for the call. I really appreciate it, Kevin. Stay warm. Stay warm. More of your calls coming up. The lab continues in just a bit. Also, computers from the past, ghosts of your computer past coming up. Whoa.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the lab in beautiful 16:9. I'm Leo Laporte. Let's get another caller on the air. Kate Abraham.
Fantastic. We are going to London, Ontario, and this is Rick.
And she's 5'10" by 3.
Nearly 6 foot.
Are you?
Yeah, I've got heels on today as well.
Oh, that puts you over 6 foot.
Super tall today.
And beautiful, I might add. Hello, Rick. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
I am great. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me on your show.
Of course. What can we do for you?
Well, I've got a bit of a problem. I painted myself into a corner, and I'm able to throw a bit of a lifeline. I've got some camcorder tapes, 8mm camcorder tapes from the early 90s.
Okay.
All these treasured memories of my young children.
Yes. You know what? I have the same thing. My first was 1992, and I have them on high 8.
Well, they're not high 8. It was even before that.
You have VHS or Super 8 or?
I think it's Super 8. I think is what it's
called.
And our camcorder is long gone. It doesn't work anymore. So I wanted to get these transferred to a digital format so I could preserve these memories.
Right.
So I went to a company and I had them converted to MPEG files.
Oh, good for you. How much did that cost? Was that expensive?
It was $10 an hour.
Okay.
$10 for an hour.
Per hour video. That seems very fair.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was quite reasonable.
Yeah, I have to do that. I have a ton of tapes.
And then I went out, and here's the expensive part. I went out and bought an iMac.
Okay.
So that I could edit these tapes and make them into nice movies.
Right.
I heard that I'm from the PC world, so I'd heard that the Mac was excellent for that.
Yes.
But to my surprise, I found out that iMovie and the QuickTime movie player in the iMac won't play MPEGs.
They're MPEG 1?
I believe they're MPEG 2s.
Huh.
It comes up and it says this is not a movie.
Yeah. If it's a codec that QuickTime doesn't understand, iMovie won't understand because it uses QuickTime to interpret it. However, the good news is you just add the appropriate codec and you'll be able to import it into QuickTime and save it out into something iMovie can understand. This is the first place you should go. It's Perian, Perian.org, free. And what it is just a bunch of codecs. Everybody who uses a Mac should absolutely install this. It adds it to the system preference pane. It interprets all of these files, including all the MPEG 1 formats and MPEG 2 formats. So you should be able to read those files no problem. If you still cannot play them back, it may be, I would. It's a little odd that these guys would convert this into some format that is so obscure, because but there is one other player you might be able to use. I've found can play almost anything. It's the VideoLAN client, videolan.org, and this is a free player. Now this isn't going to help you edit them, but at least you'll be able to look at them. It's free also for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's open source, and I don't think this has an export feature. However, I'll show you what does, and it's fantastic. It's a program called Visual Hub. Now, this one's not free. The first two I showed you, Perian. Try Perian first. I think Perian will solve your problem, but if it doesn't, Visual Hub certainly will. It's the universal video converter for Mac. I use it all the time. It can convert almost any file to any other file. It downloads a set of codecs. You could try before you buy. It's from TechSpansion, TechSpansion.com, Visual Hub. And this I guarantee you will convert it to a format that you can use on iMovie.
Perfect.
So you will be able to get to them, I promise you. I have yet to find a movie I can't play back on a Mac.
That's excellent.
Okay.
I'll give it a try.
Hey, thanks. I think that's a great project. Thank you for the tip.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Take care.
Bye.
All right, coming up, the ghosts of computers past. But first, the ghost of computers present.
Yes.
Ryan Ewell with our pick of the day.
We're on Windows. It's called SyncToy. You've probably mentioned this. Yes, from Microsoft. I'm sure you've mentioned it before, but I thought I'd just show it off
everybody.
quickly.
It's good to promote this because everybody needs to know.
So what you do is you run it, and it allows you to sync folders. It can be a folder on a network. It can be a folder on your computer, and it basically just keeps them the same, so that if you're trying to manage files and folders, you're good to go. So what you do,
this is a great way to back up.
Exactly.
As well.
So when you first run it, what you have to do is you have to create a folder pair. So you just hit create folder pair. You choose your one folder. So I'm going to say my desktop icon is one folder, and then I'm going to browse for the other folder. I'm going to say on the same one, backup. So it's on the same desktop.
But it could be on a different drive.
It could be
anywhere.
Different computer. Just for the simplicity here. Then I hit next, and then you can choose how you want to synchronize. There's a few different ways. One is just a copy from one to the other all the time. Right. The other is if one is different or the other's different, it will try to sync them up.
So you can make them exactly the same, but for backup purposes, I would just copy. That way you have old versions.
So we could do
file.
echo then. You just hit next, and now let's call it test.
That's the name of this particular backup routine.
The backup routine will finish, and now I'll just hit run, and there you go. It's backing them up.
And it's free.
And you can use automated tasks so that you don't have to always run it yourself. You can
It'll run in the back automatically.
Using Windows accessories, I think it's automated tasks or something like that. I did it. It works.
SyncToy.
SyncToy for Windows.
Must have. This is a backup tool everybody who uses Windows should have, and it's free from Microsoft.
It's free from Microsoft.
One of many Yule's Jewels.
Go to labwithleo.com, hit free files. Yule's Jewels are there. This one's a good one.
Coming up.
Thumbs up.
What's your favorite old computer game machine or
Nintendo Entertainment System by
Wouldn't
far.
it be cool if we could just somehow make that PC or your Mac play NES games?
It is cool.
You've done it, and we're going to show you how. Zach Grant coming up with Ghosts of Computer Past. But first, a last chance to take our quiz question. It's first our last chance to take. What did Edward Muybridge invent in 1879? Cinemascope, Zoopraxiscope, Kinetoscope, or 150-inch plasma TV? I'll tell you what, we'll talk about it when the lab continues. You stay right here. Welcome back to the lab. Before the break, we asked you, what projection system did Edward Muybridge invent? It was 1879, and he invented the Zoopraxiscope. And the reason was, well, people didn't know at the time whether, it was actually a big debate, whether a horse's hooves ever left the ground, all four hooves or not. There was a big bet with the governor of California. Muybridge took pictures of a horse, and yes, they do all leave the ground at one point. Somebody won the bet. I don't think it was the governor of California. Zach Grant is here. He is from Foo, the Foo Associates, a strategic consultancy. He's worked for the Mozilla Foundation, a lot of other stuff. Great to have you back.
Thanks, Leo.
Apparently, you're a little bit of a gamer at the same time.
I am. That's how I got my start in computing.
A lot of us, I think. This is my theory. People who love computing started as gamers because it always was fun, right? Started as fun, right? So what was your, we've been talking all day about your first game system.
Well, it wasn't really a game system, the Sinclair ZX81.
See, there you go.
So the Spectrum came along later.
Yeah, she's happy about that. Mine was an Atari 400. All of these can be emulated on the computer, right? Now, we should mention up front that there is some debate over whether this is okay or not. I mean, people like Nintendo say, well, wait a minute, that's our Nintendo Entertainment System, right? Right. But they're not selling it anymore.
Right. It's a complex issue. Basically, neither party is exactly right. The big entertainment corporations are not exactly right in their position. And sometimes the people making emulators are bending the rules.
Right.
I'm showing you stuff that is free and clear today.
There's no question that this is okay.
No. This stuff is all okay. But when you go out and look online, keep an eye open. If you're a Canuck, you might want to visit michaelgeist.ca.
He's got a great site, yeah.
Canadian lawyer, knows a lot about this stuff.
A lot of times what they'll do is they'll put out the emulator and then not give you the games, and that's kind of up to you to find, because that's the part that's a little gray area, right? So let's take a look at what you got here. Now we're doing this on a Mac. Most of these will run on a variety of systems, right?
Many of these will run on a variety of systems. The most common platform for emulators is going to be Windows.
Of course.
But there are many for OS X as well. What I've got for you today are two different systems. One for the Commodore 64. That was my second machine, a favorite of many people. And the second is a machine that was never actually implemented. Let's start off with the C64.
Wow. How hard is it to write these? Go ahead, start. I want to see it.
No, it can be fairly difficult, but not as difficult as writing a new operating system.
This computer is so powerful compared to a C64, it could probably be faster, right?
Absolutely.
Look, there it is. There's your C64.
It is a beautiful site. What I've done is I have loaded up a disk image of a game called Red Runner, which a Finn coded last year, actually.
So they're still writing new games.
People are still writing new games. So let's start Red Runner, and let's notice that it's taking its time. Since it's an emulator, we can go into turbo mode.
So it was running at normal C64 speed. Now it's running a lot fast, way too fast to play, I might add.
So let's drop it back down.
Oh, it even does audio?
It has audio. It has synthesized voice sections. We can play it using joystick emulation or USB joysticks.
That's the trick, because we don't have those C64 joysticks anymore, right? But you use your keyboard to fake it.
And you can get of course, modern joysticks and hook them up. It works pretty well.
Now, people looking at this go, why would I, when I can play, Far Cry, why would I play this? Or Crysis? But it's memory lane. It's fun.
It's memory lane. Yeah. It's getting to work on an extremely simple system where you get a great amount of control over.
So that's why the programmers love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my friends, a computer scientist, is teaching his son to program on a Commodore 64.
Oh, how interesting.
Because he gets control over every piece of it. And he can understand the entire system.
Right,
it's
right.
only 64 kilobytes of ROM and RAM together.
Right. This was running on a 6502 processor, so for the Mac to run this, it actually has to take its much more powerful Intel processor and interpret every single command, but it's fast enough that it can do that in faster than the Commodore 64 could.
And using emulators, you can turn your expensive MacBook into a 20-year-old piece of junk effortlessly.
But it's fun. It's fun. What else can we do?
Well, there are some other, I mean, with this you can freeze things that you could never do with the original machine, so I just press
Is the programming language on here BASIC? Is it Commodore BASIC?
You can use BASIC, you can use Assembler, 6502 Assembler. You can do anything on this you could do on the original machine.
That's neat.
Except for insert one of these lovely floppies.
This is how the software used to come. I don't know. There's probably people watching who go, what is that?
It's amazing.
You wonder why they call them floppy disks? Because they used to be floppy. Not anymore. Heck, diskettes aren't even very common anymore. This is an old format.
They aren't. Old format. I have fond memories of those.
That's really great.
We also have emulators getting used for educational purposes, for directly educational purposes. A good example of this would be in MDK. MDK is an emulator for MIX. MIX is the programming language and architecture that computer scientist Donald Knuth invented for his classic, The Art of Computer Programming.
It's kind of a pseudo processor.
It is kind of a pseudo processor. It resembles real processors, but it's a great teaching system. It was never implemented except on paper.
Right. He thought of it as a paper system. Yeah. But somebody's actually written it.
Someone's actually written it. We just go. I fired up terminal in OS 10.
So you're going to run your MIX emulator, the new MDK.
So I just go.
Do people write software in MIX now?
People don't generally write software. People usually take the 3-volume opus, soon to be 4, of The Art of Computer Programming and test the programs in this MIX virtual machine.
Oh, that's really cool. So, they were only ever run by pencil, but now they can be run by computer.
So I'm starting up the MIX virtual machine, and I'm loading in a compiled MIX assembler language program. So I've loaded the program.
Yeah.
I run it, and all it says is "Hello World."
But it worked.
It worked, and I can do things like edit it.
That's so cool. We can show you where to get this, the Commodore 64 emulator, and a lot more. There's emulators for almost every old computer, including the Sinclair and the Spectrum. We'll go online and show you that. It's at labwithleo.com. Zach Grant is with Fu Associates. He's a founding associate. Also has done work for many other companies, including the Mozilla Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us. What fun. I want to play with I have the Knuth volumes. I'll start entering MIX code in. A final word coming up right after this. You stay right here. Welcome back to the lab. I was just telling Kate we got to find a Spectrum. I'm sure there's a Spectrum emulator.
That would be such good fun.
It's not actually that well, I shouldn't say that. I don't think it's that hard to write these things. Once you write the emulator for the processors to say, okay, here's how you make a 6502, the old processor on the Commodore 64, run on an Intel. Once you write that, then you can just take the old Nintendo code. That's where Nintendo gets upset. They say, oh, you're using our old code. That's not okay with us.
We don't like that.
Yes. Hey, let's tell people how they can be part of the show.
Absolutely. It's labwithleo.com/tech questions. Fill in the form and then we'll get you on the show. Any tech problem you have, we will solve it.
And we've got everything we talked about. Not guaranteed. Don't listen to her. Everything on the show is also on the website, labwithleo.com. Thanks for joining us. Hope you'll come back. Tell your friends. See you next time.
Bye-bye.